On today's show, the Brooklyn Nets made some news. Kevin Durant said some things about his own teammates. What does he want? Is he justified in his complaint? Ben Simmons, they had a players-only meeting about him. What could they have talked about? And then, are the Celtics and the Bucks rising to the top of the NBA? Are those the two best teams in the NBA going forward? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to comment below. Let me know. What's your 2 stars? Who are your 2 stars of the night? Let us know in the comments below. And joining me, as always, my co-host on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
Was that Brooke Lopez or Brooke Curry out there? Is there a new brother in the family? What's going on tonight?
Brooke Benyama? Is that what?
Brooke Benyama. Brooke Benyama. 1,000 points. I shall award you 1,000 points.
Brooke Lopez, 7 threes, 3 blocks in the game against the who did they play? The Cavs?
Yes, the Cavaliers. The game we're talking about.
I don't know who the opponent was.
It doesn't matter. 7 threes. Okay.
On today's show, we'll talk about the Brooklyn Nets situation because there are times when I don't want to talk about the Brooklyn Nets anymore. And then a Kevin Durant story comes out, and a Ben Simmons story, and then a Kyrie story comes out all at once. We'll talk about the state of that franchise. And then, are these the 2 best teams in the NBA? Celtics and the Bucks both get big wins against the Hawks and the Cavs. Are they the 2 best teams? And then we'll play our favorite game every week. Count it up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Is there a Jay Crowder trade on the horizon? Who needs Jay Crowder the most? We'll talk about that in the third segment. Let's get into this. Chris Haynes comes out with a Kevin Durant. It's not an op-ed, but it kind of felt like an op-ed because it was mostly just Kevin Durant quotes, like literally just blocks of paragraphs of Kevin Durant quotes on it. It felt like Kevin Durant just wrote it himself. But in Bleacher Report, this article came out about Kevin Durant, and the premise of it was that there are these executives across the league that are looking at the Brooklyn Nets situation and saying, all right, Kevin Durant requested a trade over the offseason. The Nets are not going in a positive direction right now. What's the status on Kevin Durant's trade request? And I don't know that we learned that he has not requested a trade anymore. He starts with asking for, he's like, well, I wanted accountability. Me, Kevin Durant, I wanted accountability for myself, from the coaches and the staff. And he wanted to make clear that he wasn't just demanding everybody make everything easier for me, which I found very interesting because you know who did that in his career? Russell Westbrook. Everything was catered to Russell Westbrook in OKC. The parking, like all the practice, like all the things were like catered to Russell Westbrook. And Kevin Durant wanted to make clear he's taken all these things from his career, and he's like, I'm not that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. But we're not sure what Kevin Durant wants to be. And he said, I wanted more closeout drills. I wanted more coaching. I wanted to be, I wasn't feeling that with Steve Nash and the former coach. Nobody was on that same vibe with me. That was one of his quotes. He said, Jacques Vaughn is on that same vibe. What does Kevin Durant want, Pat?
I think Kevin Durant wants what we all want the Brooklyn Nets to be. Just a regular basketball team. Just a team that does things like basketball teams do, They go out there, they play basketball games. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. There's coaching that's involved. Buckets go in, but balls go into bucket. You know what I mean? Like, I think he just wants to be a part of a regular basketball team. He didn't expect to be sent to a team where I know like Kevin Durant's situation is very different and very like, KD, you can't be throwing stones in glass houses out there. But very much he's the one normal thing about this team at the end of the day.
He said through all the Chris Haynes writes, through all the turmoil, Durant says he's in a happy state with the team and is enjoying navigating the curveballs thrown at him. So I think he's at a point now where he's like, all right, I'm just going to accept what's happened to me. This team is, no one could have predicted how terribly this whole thing went with me coming to Brooklyn with my friend Kyrie. And then James Harden came along, and then how badly that all went, and then now the state that they're in. So then he said, the Nets don't measure up with the best of the rest of the league on paper. He hopes to instill confidence in his teammates, and he did that by saying this, quote, "Look at our starting lineup. Edmund Sumner, Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, and me. It's not disrespect, but what are you expecting from that group? You expect us to win because I'm out there? So if you're watching from that lens, you're expecting us to play well because number 7 is out there." Pat, is he justified in his complaint about the players on his team?
There's two parts. Right? Yes, he's justified. The team, and there's a lot of situations where we can keep going back, and even when you listen to Locked On Nets, you can keep going back and say the Brooklyn Nets are a really, really bad organization. Like, they've managed to get 3 really good players and mess everything up around every one of them, and somehow with all the stories they have, still be the top story. Yes, he's justified in his complaints. But it is so funny that he's like, it's not disrespect, but come on. Come on.
No disrespect, but I don't want no scrubs. Scrub is a guy that can't get in the starting lineup with me. Like, he really just went out there and said that basically to everybody and like to the world. You have to go and play with those guys. Like, I know
How do you come back from that.
I know you're on a different level as like a star player, and like I know KD always wants to be that guy that I just tell the truth. I go on Bill Simmons' show, I'm going to tell the truth about what it is. Yeah. That's why we love those interviews that he did back a couple years ago with Bill Simmons. You're like, oh, I just love to hear how it is. Like, tell me how it is. And now he's telling it as it is, and it's like, ooh, I don't know if you come back from that. And so if you're Joe Harris, if you're Royce O'Neal, if you're Edmund Sumner, what are you feeling? I
mean, for me, right, like, there's nothing that's going to change it. You probably go there and real talk, right? You go look at Kevin, and if you're a competitor, an athlete like these guys are, and they're all competitive and they want to win, they're going to look at KD and they're going to say, that was messed up what you said. And now let me go out here and I'm going to prove you wrong. That's what you hope comes out of this whole thing. But at the end of the day,
KD is right. And so that won't happen.
Royce O'Neal. Honestly, the best player that's left on his team right now is Seth Curry.
It's not Ben Simmons.
It's by no means.
It's not. Well, I mean, is Kyrie Irving? He's coming back. It sounds like
when Kyrie comes back, that's different. I'm just talking about like this current, like while he's doing the interview.
It's not Nick Claxton.
Come on now. We're talking about the big man that Kyrie out rebounded like twice this season. That's what we're talking about right now. Shout out Nick Claxton.
Speaking of Ben Simmons,
it's not disrespect.
Not disrespect.
It's not
no disrespect to Ben Simmons. But there was a players-only meeting about Ben Simmons with the Brooklyn Nets. So Ben Simmons was asked about the Nets and the players' frustration with him being in and out of the lineup. He's been dealing with the knee surgery that he had. He said this to The Athletic, and this blew me away today. Quote, "You're obviously not going to be happy when anybody's out," Simmons told The Athletic. "But for me, I've been dealing with the knee since the start of the season. It's been swollen. I had PRP injections. I had blood drained a couple of times. So it's not a made up thing, you know? It's a real thing." Okay, Pat. To me, that's like, it's not a made up thing. In the past, I may have made up a thing to keep me out of the lineup so that I didn't have to play. But this one's not made up. So I'll take him at his word there, that this knee thing is real, right? He did have surgery. He is coming back from an injury. Like, you have to come back slowly from things like that. But to say it's not a made up thing after there's this whole conspiracy. Do I have my conspiracy music? After there's this whole conspiracy that his mental health thing was not about mental health, that it was about him just wanting to get away from the team, that strikes me as fishy.
I don't know if I'll go as far as saying that that he's trying to cover up on something that was previously made up, but I mean it's
a Freudian slip, maybe.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much around Ben Simmons that it's just like, okay, if it is the knee and it is this serious and it is, whatever it is, what's going to change with you being here? Like, you're making a lot of money. Like, are you going to come back and you're going to be a better player? For me, it's the basketball aspect of it. And Ben Simmons hasn't lived up to the basketball aspect of it. And is he playing through? Is there some way he can play through it? Can he get to the next level? Is there more he can do? Because I sat here and I watched Zach LaVine, now different situation, knee scope, stuff like that. And the season hasn't started the way we thought it was, but I watched him play on 50% of a knee last year. He's still a top 12 scorer. He wasn't good defensively. There were things that he definitely slacked off at. But, like, what can you contribute to this team? I think that's the question that we're all asking of everybody on this team, even Kevin Durant. But outside of Kevin Durant, like, Kevin Durant's also asking, like, what can you contribute to this team, please, Ben? So Ben Simmons is such a. How many times? I'll ask this: how many times have you actually forgotten Ben Simmons on the team?
Many.
I've forgotten it so often.
They came into Dallas the other night. He comes off the bench, and I was like, oh yeah, Ben Simmons is not only on this team, but he's active tonight.
I've forgotten Ben Simmons played for the Nets multiple times this season until they pan to him on the camera and they're like, Ben Simmons is wearing a full sheet tonight.
Reminder, the number one pick in the 2016 draft, Ben Simmons. It's like,
he does still exist.
Kyrie Irving is also apparently in the process of returning, and he could return to play as soon as Sunday's game against the Memphis Grizzlies. So another change for the Nets. Like, this team continues to be a team that stuff just keeps happening to, and players keep coming in and out of the lineup. So he could be back by Sunday, so watch out for that. Coming up, let's talk about the Celtics and the Bucks. Two teams that are actually playing basketball and actually playing really good basketball. Are they the two best teams in the NBA? Should this be, I guess, the finals, but it's going to be in the East. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetterHelp. This is something that I think everyone needs. You need to talk to somebody. There's stuff going on in your life that you just need to talk about, that you need to get out. Like, you can't just rely on the people around you sometimes because they have lots of context, they have lots of other worries and things, but somebody that's a professional, that knows how to talk to you, that knows how to listen, that knows how to ask questions. You can get that at BetterHelp. It's the world's largest therapy service. BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. I've used this. I've used BetterHelp myself when I was in a situation, and I would still use it now if I didn't have a different service, that I could just talk to somebody online. You can do it wherever you want to. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match you with a therapist. And I know one of the most intimidating parts is finding a therapist that matches to you. You can meet with somebody, and if you're not vibing with them, you can pick somebody else, and you can switch and keep switching until you find somebody that works right for you. Therapists don't take that personally. I know a therapist very well, and she says that, hey, it's part of the whole process. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searches for the right therapist. Go to BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Pat, let's get into the Boston Celtics versus the Atlanta Hawks. They get the win. Really good win for them against the Hawks. The Hawks have been a really good team so far this season. The Milwaukee Bucks get a 113-98 win over the Cavs, who have also been a very good team this season. Are these the two best teams in the NBA?
I think so right now, right? Like, you've got two teams that have championship level experience. Now, Boston Celtics don't, I guess, finals experience for the Boston Celtics.
They were there last year, yep.
That finals experience, they've been there. They kind of know how to navigate the waters now. And I think you're seeing a lot of, right, like, they're coming out with a no-nonsense mindset. They're coming out with a, hey, we're going to put you guys away early so that we can maybe take our foot off the gas a little bit going into the second half of the season, rest up more guys going into the playoffs here, right? Put ourselves in a good position early. And I mean, like, I think the thing that you're looking at with both of these teams is it's not just the stars on this team, right? For me, it's not just the fact that Giannis is Giannis. It's not just Jason Tatum being able to go off. It's not just Jaylen Brown being able to cook. I'm looking at, okay, who else is making an impact on this team? It's Malcolm Brogdon coming off the bench and giving you solid production, really good production. On the Bucks, right? Bobby Portis continuing. Bobby Portis is one of those players where, poor Nico. Bobby Portis is one of those players where, like, he could put up 10 and 5, and you would be like, it felt like he put up 30 tonight because of him always just having an impact on the play that's at hand. Brook Lopez tonight, right, going off for 7 3-pointers and 3 blocks, right? Like just seeing the team that's built around the stars that is already there. You really, I mean, the supporting cast, is there a team in the NBA outside of those two that has as good of a supporting cast, you think?
I was told many times that the Golden State Warriors were supposed to have. I was also told many times that the Clippers were supposed to have like the best supporting cast, right? And those two teams have not. Those two teams have not been as good. And the Warriors are getting incredible play from their star player, but I think that the Bucks and the Celtics are getting incredible play from their star players, and then the rest are falling behind them, right? And I think that those two teams are just feels like they're well coached, they're well put together. It feels like with Brogdon, like you mentioned before, I always like to bring up the first, I think it's a pilot episode of 30 Rock, where they have Jenna Maroney, who's like this blonde, like Broadway type actress. You have this guy Josh, who's just like me, the generic white guy, and then they're like, all right, we got to bring on one more person to this show. You need a third heat. You need a third kind of heat, like a convection oven, right? 3 different kinds of heat.
Yeah.
And they bring in Tracy Morgan, Tracy Jordan on the show. Yeah. And then at the end of the show, Tracy Jordan gets up in front of the whole crowd and goes, I am the third heat. And I just think that these teams sometimes, you need a third heat. And they had Tatum and Brown. That's your first 2 types of heat. And then Smart kind of was. Then they brought in Derek White, and they tried him to be the third heat at times. Al Horford can be at times. Malcolm Brogdon has come in and been the third heat, right? Or on offense, that's what they needed. They needed some extra playmaking. They needed some extra scoring. And when he stays healthy, man, he just adds just a little bit extra to him. And I think it's helped him a lot.
Yeah, 100%. He's a guy that when you see Malcolm Brogdon get into the game, you can't. Yeah, like how many times in an NBA game, right, does the backup point guard come in or the backup 2 guard come in, and you're like, okay, now I can put my backup in. You don't feel like that with Malcolm Brogdon. You're like, I know for the Bulls, right? Like it was like, oh, all right, let's keep Al Suma in a little bit longer because we know that he's going to play well defensively against him, right? Like, or let's put Alex Caruso in, but like he's also got to stay in to play Jason Tatum later in the game, right? Like it just makes you so much more tired trying to cover that game because Tatum can go off on you, Brown can go off on you, and then Malcolm Brogdon can just be the dude that's in the back that's like, I'm also going to put up 15 and 7. So.
And Brogdon didn't play in this game. Let's be true. We're talking about these teams as a whole and what they've looked like so far. But these teams have also, you know what they do, what the best teams in the NBA do every year? They have to hit on one wild card guy. One wild card guy has to become part of the rotation. And for the Bucks, it's been Javon Carter. He had that crazy, 30 and 12 game the other night. But he's like 10 and 3 off the bench, and he's always going to bring good defense. And then Sam Hauser for the Celtics has been that guy. Sam Hauser had, 15 points in this game. He hit 5 threes. He was a plus 35. He led them in plus minus. He's just been that extra. They just hit on a guy, right? A guy that you just grab off the shelf and you just put in. And both these teams have added that. Let's talk about the Bucks, though. They still have not had Chris Middleton. What does this team look like when they bring Chris Middleton back?
I think it's such a deep team, right? Because you even talk about, like, I look at this game tonight. You're not talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo coming out there and dominating John Collins like we 110% expect to happen anytime these guys match up. No, we're talking about Brook Lopez going off. You're talking about Jordan Nwora going off
against the Cavs, not John Collins.
Who'd I say? I'm sorry. I said John Collins. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Dominating against Evan Mobley, whatever big man you want to put. Anybody Giannis plays, he dominates. But yes, you're right. I said John Collins. I
would expect him to dominate John Collins.
Quite often. But no, right? Like you look at this game and it's Jordan Nwora. It's Brook Lopez. It's Javon Carter, right? Chipping in with just efficient night, 5 for 10. Those are the things that, right, when you add Middleton back into that, if those guys are able to maintain that level of play, then you're looking at this team and you're like, my God, when do we get a break? And I think that's kind of when Middleton's not there, that's kind of what you're allowed to get from a lot of your skill positions is like, okay, Giannis isn't in the game. All right, now we're going to try and put this guy in to really go at the Bucks and get us back in the game offensively. where when you got Giannis, Chris Middleton, and you're going from Middleton to Bobby Portis, Nawara, Serge Ibaka, and you know what I mean? Like all these guys that still have amazing length, you're working twice as hard the entire game.
Who's the other team that has a shot? So I think the Celtics and Bucks are the number one, number two team just by record, and we think they're the best teams. Who else has a shot right now? The Blazers are next in record, then the Suns, then the Nuggets, Jazz, Hawks, Pelicans, Grizzlies, Cavs, Mavs. Woo! The top of the NBA is wild right now. Yeah, if the Mavericks are like in the top 10 or 11. I think it's the Suns and Nuggets, right? Like I think those are the two next teams that you look at and you're like, okay, I think those two teams I believe in. I don't know that I believe in the Blazers. I don't know that I believe in the Jazz to be top level, like cream of the crop type teams. I think those other teams will probably have good records, but
I think the one team probably to watch out, of course, the two, right? I do think Denver's one that you could say could compete for that because you've got guys that are still working themselves back into it. Oh, by the way, they're playing really well early in the season. Yeah. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. put up 31 points in 3 quarters the other night and was just like, I'm going to take the 4th off. It was against us. But it was against the Bulls. But, yeah, we should have drafted Wendell Carter Jr. But Garpax. I'll give you a team right that also just beat us twice. But I'm really impressed by what I've seen from the New Orleans Pelicans around what Zion Williamson is able to do now. Of course, Zion has to be on the floor to make that happen. He did not play tonight, but for the most part, right, like when you see Zion Williamson, you think like, okay, there's no way anybody's going to be able to operate in the paint. But then I see Jonas Valanciunas, and I'm like, all right, they got the size and the length to compete with a lot of these big teams. Then you see B.I. taking shots. You're like, oh, snap, they got the shooting as well. Yeah. Then McCollum starts adding it. I think they are a team that could be a sleeper for one of the best teams in the Western Conference, but it's going to have to be with a healthy Zion Williamson. I don't think that happens if Zion is kind of in and out of the lineup all year.
It seems like they're just going to overwhelm you with like, hey, we have all these guys that just do so many good things, right? Like Jose Alvarado has been great with a bunch of different players on the team. You got CJ McCollum, you got Herb Jones. You guys just got so many. You're just going to overwhelm you with our lineups. All right, coming up, let's play our favorite game every week. Count it up. Count it up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Is there a Jay Crowder trade ready? Is it time to fire up the laser beam for the season? The Kings. Well, they have the best record in California by the end of the season. We'll talk about that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Sweatblock. Sweatblock is this fascinating product. I did not know that this could exist. If you deal with embarrassing sweat, you got pit stains. You're wearing a light blue shirt. I'm wearing a maroon shirt. The pit stains come through in these. You can see it through. If you're wearing gray, like there's certain colors of shirts maybe that you don't wear because you're embarrassed about your pit stains. Sweatblock can help you. They're these little wipes. I've used them. They're these little wipes. You put them on when you're dry and you just wipe your underarms or your lower back or wherever you don't want sweat to show. You won't sweat for 7 days. Go try it out. Sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Save 20%. Promo code again, LOCKEDON, 2 words, to save 20%. You can also get these on Amazon. They have a bunch of other products as well. So go check out their whole line. Sweatblock.com/LockedOn. That's it. Sweatblock.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. I thought it was Locked On NBA. It's not. It's just Locked On.
And we're fired.
And yeah, I'm going to fire myself out of it. All right, let's play our most favorite game every week.
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it.
Where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. All right, Pat. The Suns, according to Jake Fisher, the word is the Suns appear close to finalizing a 3-team trade involving Jay Crowder prior to tonight's tip-off against Golden State. So they're moving and shaking. Jay Crowder's been out since the beginning of the season. He's been sending very cryptic messages. He posted on his Instagram story a black screen with just a little mantle clock, like the clock that sits on top of your mantle emoji. Which team needs Jay Crowder the most, do you think?
Count it up.
I would say
I got four options for you.
You actually have? Yeah, go ahead and throw the options out there. I was gonna say the Sixers. I think the Sixers.
That's a really good one. I didn't have them on here. The Heat. They're kind of struggling. They could use a 4. They didn't have one single 4 going, like one single power forward going into this season. Yeah. The Warriors could use some depth. They've got some depth problems that we didn't think they were going to have. The Hawks could use some wings probably, I think, a little bit. And then the Cavs. Which of those teams do you think needs him the most?
Cavs. I think the Cavs just have too many large people in their lineup, so no more.
Too many large people and too many small people.
Too many large. It's a stark contrast. Like you look at that lineup and you're like, there's a lot of tall guys. Oh, there's also some short guys there too. I think I'd still go Philly, right? Because I think there needs to be, even out of those four, just because I think there needs to be more of a heartbeat on that team and more of somebody that's going to tell James Harden, hey, maybe we need to do this, or hey, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I think Jay Crowder comes in not just as the talent, but also as the dude that's going to be what they thought PJ Tucker was going to be. That's going to be the energy, the fight, that no matter what you do, I'm going to throw myself in front of everybody and say, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're right. Like just that guy that's the mouthpiece.
If you're waiting for Jay Crowder to be that, I think you may have bigger problems on your hands.
I think Philly does have bigger problems, right? And I think that's just right. Like he brings that personality, he brings that energy, and I think that's what Philly could benefit from it. Miami, I think he fits the energy that Miami already has. And so I think he could be effective down there next to Bam Adebayo. Him, Jimmy Butler, Bam, you know what I mean? Like those are guys that to me are very like-minded in their approach to the game.
He played
Crowder maybe
20 games for Miami, but doesn't he seem like the most Miami player that's out there?
Yeah, for sure. Right? It's not going back to Miami would be the most. They'd be like, oh, of course he did.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like here's my only thing, right? Because I keep hearing him being linked to Milwaukee more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Milwaukee has that guy. I feel like Milwaukee, like, unless you just want more, but I feel like, right, Jordan Nwora is kind of becoming a really nice player in his own. Bobby Portis basically is that guy with better defense, with much better defense.
Beauchamp has been pretty good for them in certain roles like that.
Yes. Like, I feel like Milwaukee has that guy at that point, right? Like, are you just making a trade so that you don't have to play Serge Ibaka enough? That's the only thing that I could see with Milwaukee.
The Sacramento Kings, have you been tracking this? After wins, they light up this giant beam of light. This giant purple like laser beam that shows up from the top of their, what's it called, the Golden One Center. Yeah. I think it's awesome because you can see it from far away. I see people tweeting it all the time. As of right now, if you're listening to this before the games have started on Thursday, the Kings have the best record in California.
Count it up.
How will the Cali team stack up at the end of the year? Sacramento's 7-6. They're number 1. Clippers are 2. They're 8-7. The Warriors are 3, they're 6-9, and the Lakers are 4, they're 3-10. How will the Cali teams stack up at the end of the year?
Count it up.
I'll have Golden State 1.
Okay. They'll come back from the ashes.
I still believe in Golden State. Like, listen, like,
okay,
the beginning of the season, they're 0-8 now on the road. All right. Yes, I've seen Golden State struggle and still make it to the Western Conference Finals. I would go, you know what? I'm going to go, never mind. I'm going to go Clippers too. I just don't believe in it yet.
You don't believe in the Kings yet?
I love the Kings' energy and what they're bringing, and I really like what I'm seeing. But it's just, right, haven't we seen like the beginning excitement? Like, oh, is this the team? And then like they go down. So I just want to see a little bit more of it. I'm going to say Kings 3rd, but I'll say it's close, right? Because I think the Clippers, while I think they have a lot of talent, I think there's also a lot of
not
behind the scenes turmoil that's going on with that team where it's like, hey, these guys look really good. All right, Kawhi's back. Kawhi's back. Kawhi's back.
He's
what?
No,
you know what I mean?
He's in the back. He's not back.
Oh, is that what it is?
He's in the back. God bless.
It's just. I feel like the Clippers are so like, well, when we get Kawhi back, we're gonna take this, and it's like, yeah, but that's not how like just throwing pieces in. That usually doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be close there, and then the Lakers have. My God,
they're the number 4 for sure, right?
My God. It's such a sad way to see LeBron's legacy end, bro. Are we really going to see LeBron's legacy end on a 30-win Laker team? 30 might be generous. A 20-win Laker, 20 might be generous.
What is?
Let's go to the next question. I'm depressed.
On Monday, Jason Tatum committed a foul, and then he clapped so loud he was called for a tech. It was rescinded the next day, but
Count it up.
what's the smallest thing you could do to get a tech for in the NBA today?
Smile, right? And that's still the weakest one ever, right?
What was that one?
When Tim Duncan laughed at what was his name? Joey Crawford. That's still the weakest one ever, right? Like he's just on the sideline literally laughing. He's like tech. And he throws him out the game for laughing at the tech. Yeah, I think that's still probably the smallest thing you can get a tech for.
Tatum and Porzingis both got one in the playoffs where they're like the play is happening and they're facing away from the play after the stoppage, and then they throw their fist. You know how you like throw a fist as if you're kind of throwing a baseball, but just like you throw it like you're upset. And they both got techs, and I think Porzingis he got ejected for that one after it was a second tech. I think that's maybe the smallest one where you're just punching the air basically.
Was that? No, that's the old one. I was gonna say there's one where like it got weird, but they were doing like in sports we do the butt pap. But they were like it was like two opposing players and they were like good play. They like smacked him back and then they just kept doing that and the ref like double teched him up and I was like, all right, now it's getting weird now.
Double what? Double cheek them up?
Double double cheeked up on a Tuesday afternoon.
Double text, double cheeked up on a Tuesday in the NBA. Luka Doncic was asked the other day, I was in this presser, and a reporter asked him, have you been paying attention to what's happening with Twitter and the changes that have been happening with Twitter and Elon Musk? Luka looked confused, looked at the reporter and said, no, all I do is play chess on my phone.
Count it up.
What's the most used app on your phone?
You always throw that one out there. What is the most used app on my phone? Probably Canva.
Really?
I probably go hard, but I'm doing 4 shows dang near a day, so I'm making a lot of thumbnails here. Probably Canva. Second is probably Audible. I listen to a lot of Audible.
Yeah.
It calms me down.
Mine's 100% Twitter, and then after that, it's probably Spotify with podcasts and music, and then maybe TikTok or Reddit. I don't know.
Twitter might be third for me, but Twitter is sliding for me.
I'm just on
because
Twitter
every day it's just like that. After the first 2 days where it was just like the Packers have cut Aaron Rodgers, I was like, oh wait a minute, like, this is from a check mark. Oh dang it, the new system got me. I was like, you know what? I'm just reading articles from now on. Who knows what the truth is anymore? Up is down, the sky is blue, cats chasing dogs, mayhem in the streets.
Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We'll be back tomorrow with Adam Mares and Wes Goldberg, another show from Locked On NBA. Thanks for listening to our Game to Game episodes as well. They're on video and audio as well on the podcast feed. So thanks for listening to that. We enjoy putting those together. Make your next listen though. Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories of the day, talking about the Cavs today. So if you want to hear in-depth stuff about the Cavs, good interview on that with Evan Damero. Go make that your second listen on the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom!